Did you know that one of the biggest mistakes seniors make is saying yes too often? It feels natural to help, especially when it's family. You've spent decades being the problem solver, the one people turn to when things go wrong. But what if I told you that always helping, no matter how small the request, could be one of the worst things you do in your later years? The truth is, wise people know when to say no, because the moment they say yes to the wrong thing, it opens a door that's nearly impossible to close. You might think you're just being generous, just being kind, but instead, you could be walking into stress, financial strain, and emotional exhaustion. Think about it. How many times have you agreed to something just because it felt easier than saying no? Maybe you lent money to a family member who promised to pay you back. Maybe you agreed to babysit the grandkids every weekend, even when you were exhausted. Or maybe you've always been the one settling family disputes, listening to every complaint, every request, every plea for help. At first, it feels good to be needed. But over time, something changes. You start to notice that the help you gave once turns into an expectation. The money you lent, never repaid. The weekend babysitting, now it's every weekend. The family problems, they never end. Because as long as you're there to fix them, people never learn to fix them themselves. Does this sound familiar? If so, you're not alone. So many seniors fall into this trap. And the worst part is, it often starts with just one time, just one loan, just one favor, just one problem solved. And before you know it, it's your new reality. But wise people, they know better. And that's why they refuse to help with the one thing that creates a trap few people can escape from. Financially rescuing grown adults. This is the hardest truth to accept, but it's the most important one. Because the moment you step in to bail out a grown child, a struggling sibling, or even an old friend, you set a dangerous precedent. You're not just helping them. You're teaching them that they can always come to you for money. And in most cases, that pattern never stops. Maybe you've already experienced this. A son or daughter needs help with rent. A grandchild wants a little extra cash. A friend is in a tight spot and just needs a little loan. And of course, you say yes, because that's what good people do, right? But what happens next? The same person comes back again and again, and before you know it, you're dipping into your savings, your retirement funds, your security, all to help someone else stay afloat. At first, it doesn't seem like a big deal. You tell yourself, it's just this once. But then it happens again, and each time it gets harder to say no, because now they expect it. They've built their life around the idea that you'll always be there to help. And here's where the real danger lies. When you need help, where will they be? Let me tell you about Mark. He was a kind-hearted father, always putting his family first. When his son lost his job, Mark didn't hesitate to help. He covered rent, groceries, even car payments, believing he was just getting his son through a rough patch. But the months turned into years. And every time Mark thought about stopping, he felt guilty. His son wasn't even trying to find a job anymore. Because why would he? His dad was covering everything. Then the unexpected happened. Mark had a health scare, an emergency that required expensive treatment. For the first time, he turned to his son for help. And do you know what his son said? "Dad, I wish I could help, but I'm broke." Mark had spent his entire savings helping his son, but when he needed support, there was no one there for him. That's when it hit him. He hadn't really been helping his son all those years. He had been crippling him. If he had said no earlier, his son would have learned to stand on his own 2 feet. Instead, Mark had built a dependency that left them both struggling. This is why wise people never fall into this trap. They know that constantly stepping in prevents others from learning how to help themselves. If you always carry someone, they'll forget how to walk. And this doesn't just apply to money. It applies to time, to emotional labor, to anything that drains you without giving anything in return. The hard truth is, if you keep rescuing people, they'll never learn to swim. And one day, when you're the one sinking, they won't know how to pull you out. Now, I know what you're thinking, but what if they really need it? And that's exactly why this is so tricky. Because yes, sometimes people genuinely need help. But the reality is, constantly stepping in creates a cycle of dependence. And in the long run, that hurts them more than it helps. If you really want to help, don't give money. Teach financial independence instead. Show them how to earn and manage their own money. Offer guidance, not handouts. And most importantly, protect your own future first. Always ensure your retirement and emergency funds are secure before giving anything away. And if someone makes you feel guilty for saying no, remember this. The best way to help people is not by making them dependent, but by helping them stand on their own. We've talked about why financially rescuing adults is a dangerous trap. But there's another one just as common, just as damaging, and just as hard to escape. And the worst part? Most seniors don't even realize they're doing it. Have you ever felt like your time doesn't belong to you anymore? Like people expect you to always be available? Because if so, you might already be caught in the second trap. And once you fall into it, it's almost impossible to get out. Let's talk about it next. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to lose control of your own time? One moment, you're enjoying your retirement, finally having the freedom to do what you want. And then, slowly, without even realizing it, your days start filling up with things you never planned. It starts with small favors, watching the grandkids for an hour, helping a neighbor with errands, taking on responsibilities that weren't yours to begin with. And before you know it, your schedule is no longer your own. At first, it doesn't seem like a big deal. You tell yourself, it's just once in a while. But then it becomes a pattern. People start expecting you to always say yes. Your children assume you'll be available at a moment's notice. A friend constantly needs help with little things. And before you realize it, you're more exhausted now than when you were working full-time. The irony? You retired to enjoy life, to finally have time for yourself. But somehow, you ended up busier than ever. Except now, it's on everyone else's terms. This is why wise people never give away their time too freely. Because here's the hard truth. Once people see that you're always available, they stop valuing your time. It's not that they mean take advantage of you. It's just human nature. If you've always been the reliable one, the go-to person, the one who never says no, then people assume that's just who you are. But over time, that turns into a problem. Because suddenly, your time isn't yours anymore. And the worst part? You might not even realize it's happening until it's too late. Let me tell you about Linda. She was a wonderful grandmother, always willing to help. When her daughter first asked if she could babysit once a week, Linda was happy to do it. She loved her grandkids. But soon, that once a week turned into twice a week, then 3 times. Before she knew it, she was the full-time babysitter. She canceled lunch plans with her friends. She put off hobbies she wanted to try. She even stopped taking the afternoon walks she once enjoyed because she was just too exhausted. And here's the heartbreaking part. Her daughter never even realized Linda was struggling because Linda never said anything. She just kept saying yes. Until one day, when she finally told her daughter she needed a break, the response shocked her. "Mom, why are you being so difficult? You love spending time with them." That's when Linda understood. Her time was no longer seen as hers. It belonged to everyone else. This is why wise people set boundaries before it's too late. Because once people expect you to always say yes, they don't take no for an answer. And the moment you try to reclaim your time, they make you feel guilty for it. So, how do you stop this from happening? The answer is simple. Start treating your time the way you treated your work schedule when you were younger, when you had a job. People respected your time because they knew you had responsibilities. But once you retire, that structure disappears. And if you're not careful, people will fill your time for you. Here's what you need to do. First, set clear boundaries. If you don't want to babysit every weekend, say so. If you need time for yourself, take it. People will adjust. Second, stop explaining. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone a long justification for protecting your time. And third, schedule your own priorities first. If you want time for hobbies, for rest, for travel, put on the calendar. Treat it like an unbreakable appointment. And most importantly, remember this. You spend your whole life giving to others. This chapter of your life, it belongs to you. We talk about time and money, the two biggest traps seniors fall into, but there's another one. And this one, it's even trickier because it's disguised as something positive. Have you ever found yourself stuck in the middle of other people's problems? Acting as a referee, the peacemaker, the one who holds everything together? Because if so, you're already caught in the next trap. And trust me, this one can drain you more than anything else. Let's talk about it next. Have you ever felt like you're the glue holding everyone together? The one who keeps the peace, settles arguments, and makes sure the family stays connected? It might feel like a responsibility, maybe even an honor. After all, you've spent decades being the problem solver. But wise people know one thing. Stepping into other people's conflicts is a mistake that can drain you faster than anything else. And here's the worst part. It rarely changes anything. Think about it. Have you ever tried to help two family members get along, only to have them turn against you? Maybe you gave advice, only to hear later that you were taking sides. Or maybe you worked hard to bring people together, only for them to go right back to fighting the next week. It's exhausting, and it's unfair to you. Because here's what most people don't realize. When you step in the middle of someone else's conflict, you take on stress that was never yours to begin with. You carry emotional weight that doesn't belong to you. And in the end, you're often the one who gets blamed, no matter how good your intentions were. Let me tell you about Helen. She was 74 and had two daughters who never got along. Every holiday was a nightmare. Every phone call between them ended in an argument. And every time, Helen found herself in the middle, trying to smooth things over, trying to make peace. She thought she was helping. But over the years, something strange happened. The more she tried to fix things, the worse it got. One day, her daughters had a falling out so bad they stopped speaking to each other altogether. And do you know who they blamed? Helen. One accused her of favoring the other. The other blamed her for interfering. And in the end, neither of them changed. Helen was left stressed, heartbroken, and exhausted. That's when she realized this was never her battle to fight. So she did something different. She stepped back. She told them, I love you both, but your relationship is up to you. I won't take sides. I won't mediate. And I won't spend my energy fixing something only you can fix. And you know what happened? At first, nothing. They kept arguing. But over time, something changed. Without Helen as a middleman, they had to face each other. They had to figure things out for themselves. And eventually, they did. This is the power of stepping back. Because the truth is, people will only fix their relationships when they decide to. No amount of pushing, begging, or negotiating can make it happen any faster. Now, this doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you don't want your family to be close. But it does mean you protect yourself. So if you find yourself always being a referee, here's what you can do. First, make it clear you're not taking sides. If two people in your life have an issue, tell them, I love you both, and I won't get in the middle. Second, refuse to carry stress that isn't yours. Just because someone is upset doesn't mean it's your responsibility to fix it. And third, set emotional boundaries. Remind yourself that their conflict is not your burden to bear. And if anyone tries to pull you back in, just repeat the simple phrase, I trust you both to work this out. Because the moment you step out of the drama, you free yourself from years of unnecessary stress. And that's the smartest thing you can do. Now, we've covered 3 of the biggest traps: giving away money, giving away time, and getting caught in other people's conflicts. But there's another mistake, one that so many seniors make without even realizing it. And the worst part, it's not just draining. It can actually make you feel lonelier, more isolated, and even less valued over time. Have you ever felt like people don't see you the same way anymore? Like your role in their life has changed, and you don't quite know where you fit? If so, you might already be caught in the next trap. And once you realize what it is, everything will start making sense. Let's talk about it next. Have you ever felt like people don't quite see you the same way anymore? Like your role has shifted, and you're not sure where you fit? It happens so slowly that most people don't even notice it at first. But one day, you realize that the way people treat you has changed. Maybe they assume you always have free time. that you have nothing better to do. Maybe they talk over you in conversations, assuming you have nothing new to add. Or worse, maybe they start making decisions for you, as if you can't handle things yourself. And this is where wise people draw the line, because they know one thing. The moment you let people treat you as if you're no longer in charge of your own life, you start losing a part of yourself. Think about it. When you were younger, you made your own choices, handled your own affairs, and set your own priorities. You were independent. But as you get older, people subtly start taking that independence away. And if you're not careful, it happens before you even realize it. It starts small. A family member insisting on handling your finances, even though you're perfectly capable. A friend making plans for you without asking if you're interested. A doctor or caregiver speaking to your adult children about your health instead of addressing you directly. And over time, those little moments add up. You start feeling less involved in your own life. Decisions get made around you, not with you. And if you don't push back, people assume you're okay with it. But here's the thing. Just because you're older doesn't mean you stop being in control. And that's why the wisest people never let anyone take their independence away. So, how do you hold on to it? First, make your own choices. Whether it's how you spend your time, your money, or where you live, remind people that you are fully capable of making decisions. Second, speak up. If someone talks over you or makes decisions on your behalf, don't stay silent. Say, I appreciate your concern, but I'll handle this myself. And third, keep learning. Staying sharp and informed is the best way to show others that you are still in control of your life. Because here's what most people don't realize. The moment you stop asserting your independence, people start treating you like you don't have any. Now, all of this leads to one final mistake, one that is so common, yet so rarely talked about. And this mistake? It doesn't just drain you. It can actually take away your happiness, your peace of mind, and even your sense of purpose. It's something that happens to so many seniors, but very few see it coming. And the worst part? By the time you realize it, it's already taken hold. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you're holding on to something that no longer serves you? A responsibility, a belief, or even a relationship that only brings stress, yet you just can't seem to let go? If so, you're not alone. And once you recognize why this happens, you'll finally be free from it. Let me tell you about Robert. He was 78, retired, and living alone. For years, he stayed in a house that was too big for him, filled with things he no longer used, simply because he couldn't let go of the past. He kept old furniture, old clothes, even old responsibilities, like managing family events and solving everyone's problems, because he felt it was his duty. But deep down, he wasn't happy. He was tired. He was overwhelmed. And yet, he didn't know how to walk away. One day, Robert had a realization. He had spent years carrying burdens that weren't his anymore. He had been holding on to the past because he thought letting go meant losing himself. But the truth was, the more he held on, the heavier life became. So he did something radical. He started letting go of old responsibilities, old expectations, even old possessions that no longer brought him joy. And for the first time in years, he felt free. He moved into a smaller place, spent time doing things he actually enjoyed, and stopped worrying about what other people expected of him. And do you know what happened? Instead of losing himself, he finally felt like he had regained himself. That's the secret wise people understand. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about making space for what truly matters. So ask yourself, what are you holding on to that is weighing you down? Is it an obligation you no longer enjoy? A relationship that drains you? A belief that no longer serves you? Whatever it is, know this: you have the right to let go. You have the right to put yourself first. And you have the right to live the rest of your life on your own terms. Because the biggest lesson of all, life is too short to carry burdens that aren't yours. And the sooner you let them go, the lighter and happier you'll feel. Now, we've covered 6 of the biggest mistakes wise people avoid in old age. But here's what I want to ask you. Out of everything we talked about today, which one resonated with you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more insights that can help you live a wiser, happier life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.